The cold void of space stretched infinitely ahead, a dark sea of nothingness dotted with the faint glimmer of distant stars. Captain Marasato's hands gripped the control panel, her fingers steady despite the chaos unfolding before her. The ship's alarm screamed in her ears, the shrill sound echoing through her bones. Ahead of her, a massive breach in the ship's hull yawned wide, spewing sparks and smoke into the vacuum. "Damn it, we're losing pressure in the starboard quadrant." Her voice was sharp, but calm, practiced. Her crew scrambled behind her, tension thick in the air. Mira didn't need to turn to see their frantic movements. She could hear the clattering of boots, the murmur of panicked voices, and the hiss of leaking gas. They were running out of time. "Seal it off, now!" Mira barked, her eyes flicking to the ever-increasing countdown on the display. The breach was catastrophic, but there was no time to lament. She needed solutions, not complaints. "Captain, the damage is too severe. We can't do it," Mira cut him off. "Or we all die right here." A few seconds passed before the emergency seal triggered, locking the breach from the rest of the ship. The gas hissed once more before settling. The countdown continued to tick down mercilessly, a constant reminder of the threat they faced. Mira took a breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at the navigation screen. Their trajectory had been thrown off course, thanks to the attack from the alien vessel that had ambushed them out of nowhere. They had been just hours from reaching a safe harbor on a distant colony. Now, they were a sitting target in the middle of hostile space. "Status report," she demanded. "Engine damage is critical." Lieutenant Juno's voice crackled through the intercom. "We'll be dead in the water in less than 5 hours if we don't get a full repair." "Just 5 hours," Mira muttered under her breath. It was a death sentence, but she wasn't about to accept it. Not without a fight. "Captain?" A new voice came through. Commander Lien's voice, distorted by static, was tinged with an undercurrent of urgency. "We've detected something strange." "What now?" Mira felt her muscles tense. "A fleet," Lien replied. "But not ours. Not human." The words hung in the air, thick and charged. Myra's gaze snapped to the screen, her fingers freezing over the control console. "Are you telling me they've found us?" Lien's answer was a low hum of dread. "It's not a fleet, Captain. It's an invasion force." Myra's heart skipped a beat. She had hoped, no, prayed, that the rumors of this enemy were just that, rumors. But now, it seemed their worst fears had materialized. She looked around the bridge, the faces of her crew illuminated by the cold light of the display screens. Fear, desperation, and anger flickered in their eyes, but they all knew the same truth: they were outmatched. Mira closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts. She had trained for this, trained for every possible scenario, every kind of disaster. She had fought in countless battles. But this was different. The aliens were relentless, and their methods were nothing short of ruthless. Their sole purpose, annihilation. "I need a status update on the weapon systems," Mira demanded. "We've only got partial power," Lieutenant Juno replied. "The main reactor's unstable. Any use of the weapons could cause a cascade failure." Mira gritted her teeth. The odds were against them, but she couldn't just sit there and let her crew die. The breach, the invasion, this was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of humanity. And she would be damned before she let them fall without a fight. "Target the alien ships. We've got one shot," she said, her voice steady. "We hit them with everything we've got. No hesitation." The crew exchanged hesitant glances. There was a sense of uncertainty that clung to the air, but Myra's eyes burned with a fierce intensity. She wasn't asking for a miracle, she was demanding action. "Captain," a voice called from the corner. It was Ensign Ray, who was usually silent but always observant. "I've been monitoring the enemy fleet. They're not just here to wipe us out. They're searching for something." "Something?" Mira asked sharply, a new spark of curiosity lighting her eyes. "I'm not sure yet, but the ships are moving in formation. It's deliberate. They know exactly where we are, Ray replied. They're trying to flush us out. Myra's mind raced, her thoughts spinning in circles. If they were looking for something, could it be related to the gate? The ancient technology that could change everything for humanity? The very thing that had been lost to time? Ray, get on the communications. See if you can intercept any of their transmissions. If they're searching for something, we might be able to use that to our advantage. She turned back to the crew. We're not dead yet. Get to your stations. We fight to the end. This is humanity's last stand. The crew scrambled into position, their faces set with determination. Mira knew this wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for their future. And she wasn't about to lose. As the ship's thrusters roared to life, Mira glanced at the countdown once more. Only 4 hours left. She pushed the thought away. They had no time for fear. The crew moved like clockwork. Despite the chaos, despite the pressure, they were united in their goal. Humanity would not fall without a fight. Myra's heart thudded in her chest as the ship's guns powered up. The invasion was coming. But so was humanity's answer. This was just the beginning. The spark that would ignite the fire. You said? The ship's engines groaned, a long, agonizing sound that filled the bridge with a sense of impending doom. Mira stood at the front, her hands clasped tightly around the control panel, her eyes fixed on the screens. The enemy fleet was closing in, and they had no place left to run. Shield integrity down to 20%, Captain, Lieutenant Juno reported, his voice strained. We're not going to hold out much longer. We need to act now. Myra's gaze never wavered from the display. The enemy ships were only minutes away. Even with their limited weaponry and failing power, they couldn't afford to waste another second. Yet, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her. They were outnumbered. Outgunned. And she had no idea how they could possibly win. What's the status on those transmissions, Ray? She asked, her voice sharp, cutting through the silence. Ray's fingers danced over the communication console, eyes scanning the chaotic data streaming in. I've been able to decrypt a few fragments, Captain. They're not after us, exactly. They're searching for something ancient. A relic of some sort. But I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. Myra's heart skipped a beat. The gate? Her voice was barely a whisper, a question that hung in the air like a curse. The gate, an ancient piece of technology lost to time, could change everything. It was the last hope for humanity's survival. I can't confirm it, Ray replied, her voice tight. But whatever it is, they're relentless. They know where we are, and they're coming for it. The air on the bridge grew colder. Mira swallowed hard, pushing down the gnawing fear that threatened to overwhelm her. They had no time to waste on questions. If the aliens were searching for the gate, humanity's last chance for survival was at risk. Prepare to engage the enemy, Mira ordered, her voice as steady as she could make it. We can't let them get their hands on whatever it is they're looking for. Juno hesitated. Captain, our weapons aren't. I know, Mira cut him off. But we don't have a choice. If we don't stop them, we lose everything. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. There was no retreat, no alternative plan. She had to make it work. For her crew. For humanity. Full power to weapons, Mira ordered. The ship shuddered under the strain, the sound of the weapons charging reverberating through the walls. But it was clear that even this would be a long shot. The enemy's fleet was massive, and they were advancing at breakneck speed. Enemy ships entering firing range! Lieutenant Juno's voice trembled as the sensors flashed red. The aliens were upon them. Myra's pulse quickened. She turned to face the crew, each of them staring at her with a mix of fear and determination. They all knew what was at stake. This is it, Mira said. Stay focused. Fight for each other. Fight for humanity. Without waiting for another word, she slammed her hand onto the console. The ship's guns fired, lighting up the dark void of space with bursts of white-hot energy. The enemy ships returned fire almost immediately, sending pulses of destructive energy that cracked the shields and tore through the ship's hull. Sparks flew, and the lights flickered, plunging the bridge into darkness for a moment. "Shields down!" Lieutenant Juno shouted. "Hull integrity at 15%. "We're losing it, Captain!" Mira gritted her teeth, but there was no panic in her eyes. "We're not out of this yet. Focus fire on their lead ship. Full power, now!" The crew moved like machines, their training taking over in the chaos. The ship's guns fired again, this time landing direct hits on the lead alien vessel. But the enemy didn't falter. Instead, they pushed forward, relentless. Myra's eyes narrowed as she watched the enemy ships move in unison, like a well-oiled machine. It was almost as if they were being controlled by something, someone. A commander. A mind that was driving them forward with single-minded purpose. "Captain, they're using a formation." Ray's voice trembled as she watched the screen. "It's not random. They're encircling us." Myra's stomach churned. They were outnumbered, surrounded, and weakening by the second. She knew they couldn't keep this up much longer. "Give me a tactical analysis," she ordered, her voice low but commanding. Juno glanced at the data quickly. "Their ships are more advanced than ours, Captain. They've got us outgunned, outclassed. We're not going to win this battle with weapons alone." Myra's jaw clenched. She had known it would come to this. There was no easy way out, no last-minute miracle. She could feel it in her bones. They were losing. But there was still one card left to play. "We're not just fighting with weapons," Mira said, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "We fight with what they want. Whatever they're after, we need to find it first." The crew went still, processing her words. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" Ray asked. "Get to the data banks. I want everything we have on the gate. Whatever it is, they'll stop at nothing to get their hands on it. And we need to find it before they do." Ray hesitated but nodded, scrambling for the terminal. As she typed furiously, Myra's gaze remained fixed on the advancing fleet, her heart pounding in her chest. The enemy was closing in fast. Every second counted. Then, the ship jolted violently, sending Mira crashing against the console. She heard screams from the crew, the sound of the ship's hull groaning under the strain of the alien fire. Her vision blurred for a moment, but she shook it off and pushed herself back up. The countdown to their inevitable destruction was ticking away in her mind. "Captain, we've found something," Ray called out. Her voice was tight with urgency. "There's a hidden cache of information. I'm accessing it now." Myra's eyes flicked back to the screen. The alien ships were almost within striking distance. "Get it to me now, Ray. We don't have much time." "I'm trying, Captain." Before Ray could finish, the ship lurched again, and the lights flickered once more. Myra's blood ran cold as the countdown on the display turned red. "Impact in T-minus 60 seconds. Juno's voice crackled through the chaos. This was it. The final descent. The ship was shaking violently now, the hull groaning under the relentless assault. Mira stood firm, her hand gripping the armrest of the captain's chair, eyes fixed on the advancing enemy. The alien fleet had them cornered, and the countdown clock continued its unforgiving march. Every heartbeat was a reminder of how little time they had left. "Impact in 30 seconds, Lieutenant Juno reported, his voice strained with desperation. "Shields are completely down, Captain. We've got no way to block their fire." Mira didn't flinch. She couldn't. Every instinct in her body screamed to run, to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The alien ships surrounded them like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. The only thing left to do was fight, even if it meant losing everything. "Status on the gate data?" Mira asked, her voice tight. Ray was at the communications terminal, her fingers flying over the keys, but her face was pale. "I've accessed the information, Captain. But the gate, it's not just a piece of technology. It's a weapon. A weapon powerful enough to wipe out entire star systems." Myra's heart skipped a beat. A weapon? She echoed. What kind of weapon? Ray hesitated. I don't know all the details yet, but this information, it was hidden for a reason. Whoever controls it controls everything. Myra's jaw tightened. The aliens weren't just searching for a relic. They were searching for the means to destroy entire civilizations. They had to stop them, no matter the cost. Target the lead ship, Myra commanded, her voice sharp and unwavering. We have to take them down now. The crew moved into action, their faces set with grim determination. Myra's gaze flicked to the screen, where the enemy fleet was closing in fast. Her hand hovered over the weapon's controls. It was a risk, a gamble, but it was their only shot. Captain, Juno called. Weapons are ready. But I can't guarantee we'll even make a dent. We don't need to guarantee anything. We just need to try, Myra said, her voice hard as steel. The ship shuddered once more, and Myra's stomach lurched. The aliens weren't waiting for them to fire first. They were striking, and their weapons hit hard, splintering the outer hull and sending sparks flying in all directions. The bridge was plunged into darkness for a brief moment before the emergency lights flickered back to life. We're taking heavy damage, Juno yelled. Hull integrity at 5%. We've got minutes, Captain. Fire! Myra ordered. The ship's weapons roared to life, unleashing a series of powerful blasts. The lead alien ship flinched, but it didn't falter. The blast shields absorbed most of the impact, and the ship remained largely unharmed. Myra clenched her fists in frustration. It wasn't enough. Again! She shouted. Fire again, full power! But it was no use. The enemy fleet was too strong. Even their desperate barrage couldn't slow them down. Captain, Ray said, her voice trembling. The enemy is making a move. They're activating something, a weapon of their own. Myra's heart sank. What kind of weapon? Ray's fingers danced over the terminal, her brow furrowed in concentration. I don't know / but whatever it is, it's not good. We need to stop them before it's too late. Myra turned to Juno. Get us out of here. Full throttle. We need to break free of their hold. We're not going anywhere, Captain, Juno replied, his voice hollow. Engines are shot. We're stuck here. The walls of the bridge seemed to close in on Myra. Her mind raced, but all the solutions were slipping away. There was nothing left. No tricks. No hidden weapons. Just a handful of humans against an unstoppable force. And the seconds continued to tick away, one by one. In that moment of sheer helplessness, a voice echoed through the comms, cold and calculating. You're outmatched, humans, the voice said. It was unmistakably alien, deep, reverberating, and filled with malice. Your resistance is futile. Surrender the gate, and we will spare your lives. Refuse, and you will burn. Myra's stomach turned. They had come for the gate, and now they were giving her a choice: hand over their last hope for survival, or watch everything burn. I will never surrender to you, Myra said, her voice unwavering. You can burn our ship, but you'll never take what's ours. The alien's voice laughed, a chilling sound that sent a shiver down Myra's spine. Very well, Captain. You choose to die. Myra looked around the bridge, her eyes meeting each of her crew members. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes, feel it in the air. But none of them were giving up. They were still here, still fighting. Get me the gate, Myra said to Ray. Now, whatever it takes. Ray nodded, her fingers flying over the terminal. I'm accessing the core systems now. It's hidden in a secure location, but... Captain, the information I'm pulling, it's not just about the gate. There's a failsafe. A way to activate its power. Myra's mind raced. Activate it. Whatever it takes. Ray hesitated for just a moment, her fingers stilling over the keys. Captain, this might destroy us all. If I turn on the failsafe, it could trigger a chain reaction we can't control. I don't care, Myra said, her voice steel. We do this or we die. There is no other choice. Ray's fingers pressed the final sequence, and the ship shuddered once more. But this time, it wasn't from enemy fire. It was from the ancient power now coursing through the ship's systems. Mira felt the change in the air, a shift that crackled with raw energy. For a moment, she thought she could almost see the faint outlines of the gate itself, glowing somewhere in the depths of the ship. But then, the bridge was consumed in a blinding white light. Myra's eyes burned from the intensity, but she kept her focus. It was happening. The failsafe was in motion. The alien fleet was closing in, but now they weren't the only ones with weapons. "Brace yourselves!" Mira shouted. There was no going back now. The ship's weapons powered up, and the world outside seemed to blur into nothingness as the ancient power ignited. This was it, the final stand. The point of no return. And whatever happened next, there would be no survivors if they failed. The ship surged forward, weapons primed, ready for the fight of their lives. The ship shuddered violently as the gate's failsafe took full effect. Mira felt the sudden surge of power ripple through the hull like an electric charge. For a split second, everything seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The lights flickered, the hum of the engines deepened, and then, all at once, the ship roared back to life. "Captain?" Lieutenant Juno's voice cracked over the comms. "The weapon systems, everything's coming online." Mira didn't respond. She couldn't. Her hands were locked to the console, her mind racing through every calculation, every possible outcome. The ancient power coursing through the ship was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was as if the very fabric of reality had shifted, allowing them to tap into something older, something beyond the stars. "Target the lead ship," Mira ordered, her voice low but certain. "Full power. All weapons." Juno's hands flew across the console, inputting the coordinates. "Locked on," he said, his voice steady now, as if the weight of the moment had finally sunk in. Myra's gaze flicked to the view screen. The enemy fleet was still circling, closing in for the kill. But now, with the gate's power at their disposal, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for control of their future. "Firing!" Juno shouted. The ship's weapons unleashed a torrent of energy, a beam of light so intense it nearly blinded Mira. It tore through space, splitting the void in a flash of white-hot fury. The lead alien ship buckled under the blast, its shields crumpling like paper before the storm. The ship exploded into a brilliant fireball, disintegrating before Myra's eyes. A cheer went up from the crew, but it was short-lived. The remaining enemy ships immediately shifted tactics, abandoning their coordinated formation. They scattered, trying to evade the onslaught. Myra's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the enemy maneuver. They were disoriented, desperate. The gate had given them a chance, but it wasn't enough. They still had to finish what they had started. "Keep firing! Don't give them a second to regroup!" Mira barked. The ship's guns fired again and again, each shot finding its mark. Another alien vessel crumpled under the fire, its core rupturing, sending debris scattering across the black abyss. The remaining ships were weaker now, their formation broken, their morale shattered. But there was still one more ship, larger, more imposing than the others. It had pulled back from the fray, lingering just outside their reach, as if waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Myra's instincts flared. She knew what this meant. They were going to make their final push. If that ship was allowed to regroup, it would destroy them in one clean blow. "Ensign Ray!" Mira called. "Access their command systems. I need to know everything about that ship, its weak points, its weapons. Now!" Ray's fingers flew across the terminal, her face tight with concentration. "I've got it," she said, her voice strained. "Their main weapon is focused on their rear section. If we can disable their engines, we can stop them from firing. But we'll have to hit them directly, no second chances." Mira nodded sharply. "Prepare the weapon systems. Focus on the rear engines. No more hesitation." "Captain?" Juno's voice rang out in alarm. "We've got incoming. A full salvo from the enemy flagship. This is it." The view screen flashed with incoming fire, massive beams of energy that shot toward them like missiles from a nightmare. Myra's stomach dropped as she saw the oncoming barrage. They couldn't dodge it. The ship was too slow, too damaged. "Brace for impact!" Myra shouted. The ship rocked violently as the first wave of energy slammed into them. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the ship's hull groaned in protest. Myra gritted her teeth as she held on, her body bracing against the force of the impact. The lights flickered, and the ship's systems sputtered. "Captain, the aft section is breached!" Juno yelled. "We're losing power in the engine room." "Focus fire on that flagship," Myra said through gritted teeth, her eyes narrowing as she turned to the view screen. "We have to end this now." The crew worked in frantic synchrony, pushing their bodies and minds to the limit. Ray quickly input the final coordinates, and Juno sent the order. The ship's guns locked onto the enemy flagship, and Myra's breath caught in her throat. "Now!" she commanded. In a single, deafening moment, the weapon systems released everything they had left. The energy blast tore through the void, a beam so powerful it cracked the fabric of space itself. It hurtled toward the rear engines of the alien flagship, striking true. The flagship shuddered, then exploded. A blinding shockwave ripped through space, obliterating the ship in an instant. Myra could see the debris scattered in all directions, a fleeting reminder of their victory. But there was no time for celebration. The remaining enemy ships were in full retreat, and Myra knew they wouldn't stay down for long. "Status report," Myra demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We've won," Ray said quietly. "The remaining enemy fleet is in disarray. They're pulling back to regroup. We've done it." Myra let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. They had secured their survival, this time. But the question still lingered: what had they unleashed with the power of the gate? "We need to make sure this information is protected," Myra said, her eyes focused on the screen. "The gate's power must never fall into the wrong hands." As the remaining enemy ships retreated into the depths of space, Myra felt a strange calm settle over her. They had fought to the brink of destruction, but in the end, humanity had endured. The gate, for better or worse, was still in their grasp. Myra turned to face her crew, her eyes scanning their faces, tired but triumphant. "This isn't over. But today we've won. Let's make sure we never forget why." The ship drifted into the cold silence of space, its engines struggling to stay alive. They had survived. For now. And as the stars stretched out before them, Myra couldn't shake the feeling that the true battle was only just beginning. The gate had been secured, but what would humanity choose to do with it? Only time would tell.